Awesome, awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Anthony. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the care pastor here at Hoboken Grace, and I'm thrilled to be with you as we begin week 2 of our series called Learning to Love Roller Coasters. And yes, it is Happy Father's Day to all of our dads out there. To everyone watching online, our dads online, including my dad who's watching, Happy Father's Day. We're so excited to join us. My daughter has given me one of the greatest gifts of all, besides being amazing. She's also given me the ability to be able to tell dad jokes as much as I want. So here's one. When I went to my dad's house and asked for the Wi-Fi password, he said, "Oh, it's Mickey, Minnie, Daisy, Donald, Goofy, Chip, Dale, Ariel, Denver." And I said, "Why is it that?" He said, "Well, I needed 8 characters and a capital." So there you go, folks. That's what you're getting from me today. It's been a while since I've been up here and been able to speak with you, so I'm getting all the bad jokes I can, in case they don't invite me back up here for a while. So another celebration is that our 5th graders have graduated out of Clubhouse and are joining us here today. Welcome, welcome. Very excited that you are here. Anyway, last week, Pastor Chris kicked off a series called Learning to Love Roller Coasters, and he explained something that I think we can all get behind, which is that life is like a roller coaster of love. I've been wanting to do that for the entire series. I'm done. I'm sorry. But if we're honest, we can see that life really is like a roller coaster. You're strapped in, you're riding this ride, going with its ebbs and flows and its twists and turns, and as Pastor Chris said last week, it's unavoidable. And rather than trying to avoid it, which we know is impossible, we should take a lesson from Jesus and his disciples and take heart and pray for boldness, which enables us to ride the ride well. If you weren't with us last week, I want to encourage you to go back and listen to it because it was a powerful, powerful series, a powerful beginning to the series. And I've always had a love-hate relationship with roller coasters personally. My dad and I used to love roller coasters. We used to ride them until we were blue in the face. And then I got older, I just couldn't do them anymore. In some instances, I literally couldn't do them. You ever been told you were too fat to ride a ride? Yeah, me. You've been too short, but somebody telling you, "Sorry, sir, you're too big to ride this ride," it just takes you down a whole nother area. And this was about 65 pounds ago, right? So it's not just a dad bod, it's a father figure. I promise I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, it changes. Man, does it change. It changed the relationship with roller coasters a bit when they can't put the lap bar down. And this 16-year-old kid looked me in the eyes, and I believe he made the right call. I should not have rode that ride that day because based on last week's conversation, I would not have ridden that ride well. I'd fallen out because the lap bar couldn't come down. And a big part of the roller coaster, a big part of riding that roller coaster is understanding how it's going to end, right? I can see the people pulling into the station. I know how it's going to end. And they also have one thing in common. Their lap bar is secure in place or the shoulder restraints are down. And part of riding roller coasters, if we're honest, is knowing that you're safely locked in with others on the journey. And March 24th of this year, I hit probably what was one of the biggest twists, turns, and loopholes in my current roller coaster of life. That was when my doctor called and told me those words, "You have cancer." Well, to be honest, my doctor is a little bit more colorful than that. He is from Jersey, and he literally said, "Bro, I'm so sorry, you have effing cancer." Welcome to the big house, 5th graders. But yeah, I mean, man, I guess if you're getting the message some way, it's a nice way to get it. But I mean, I was in a bit of a fog. I mean, it was a literal roller coaster moment, and it's like if that would have been a roller coaster, I would have been flung upside down. You know, I had so many questions. What kind was it? What stage was it? What's our treatment plan? I mean, what are our options? this word cancer just kind of hung out there in my head, kind of like a character, like a cloud following a character in a movie. And I teared up when I told my wife and Pastor Chris, and we were all in disbelief. There was no symptoms. I mean, this sneaky little bugger just kind of snuck up on me, and the only reason they found it was because they were doing a scan of something else, and that turned out to be nothing. And so I called the doctor that they recommended, and they said that they didn't have an appointment for 3 weeks, and I was like, that's not going to work. I need answers. I need answers now. It's like what Pastor Chris was talking about last week. We want to be able to direct the roller coaster. We work so hard in our life to be able to control the tracks and to try to control where it's going. And so I started researching and looking for a doctor that specialized in this type of cancer. And there was one in Hoboken, and I was able to get an appointment with a doctor that week that would later perform my surgery. And I went in to see him, and we put together the plan, and I began writing this loop and this twist and this turn. And my surgery was April 22nd, and the surgery that I would later come out to find out was 14 hours long. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. Fortunately, I wasn't awake for that, but I'll tell you who was. My wife and my parents and my in-laws and you, my church family, who've been incredible in praying for me over the last few months. And I mean, that was a twist and turn for sure. Because initially they were saying this could take anywhere from 6 to 7 hours, and that was double that. And man, that was another twist and turn. And then there was the recovery. Recovery was tough for so many reasons. I mean, the first 2 weeks out of surgery, I can honestly say, were some of the hardest days of my life. I didn't feel like myself. My body is responding to literal trauma. I'm trying to figure out what just happened. I got a huge scar with stitches that make me look like Frankenstein, and I have a lot of nerve damage from where the incision was, so I can't feel certain things. I mean, it's very weird. It's a twist, it's a turn. And then another loop-de-loop. About a week after surgery, my voice started to go away. The inflammation caused something to go against the nerve of my vocal cord, and I started to sound like I've been smoking 4 packs a day. And some people call me Tony in life because my name is Anthony, and people actually jokingly started calling me Pony because I was a little hoarse. It's okay. If you know me, I like that kind of stuff. But my voice was 100% coming out of surgery. And then a week later, I could barely speak. And as for someone who likes to do this for a living, I mean, that was tough. I went in for my week later follow-up, and my surgeon was like, that doesn't sound right. And I was like, you think? And I love my surgeon, I really, really do, but he was perplexed as I was, which is not something you want to hear from your expert, but clearly my voice finally came back. Thank you. So 6 weeks after it went, and man, I wish they had gotten rid of the masks a little bit earlier, because trying to talk to somebody with no voice and a mask, I was like literally typing everything on my phone, It was a loop. It was a twist. It was a turn. And in a couple of weeks, so there's already another twist and turn on the horizon. I have to do something called radioactive iodine treatment, which literally is a pill that'll make me radioactive. I have to isolate for a bit, but God willing that I will come out of this cancer-free and with some pretty cool superpowers. So anyway, why do I tell you all this? Why do I tell you all this? Well, why do I share my story from the past few months? Well, some of you have asked, and I definitely want to give you the update, but others, the reason is because I'm literally riding this roller coaster right now. Me and my family are literally riding a roller coaster. Chris asked me for this week, he said, do you have something you could say for this series? And I was like, I think God and I could come up with something. And people ask me, are you scared? Are you nervous? And I'd be lying if I told you there weren't times that I didn't get nervous or fearful, but not necessarily because of the reasons you think. I mean, yeah, I was afraid of what the cancer might do to my body, what that was going to mean for me as a husband or a parent or a pastor or a friend or a family member, what it could mean long term, right? I remember from the moment of diagnosis up until surgery, it became a constant battle of learning to trust God in the process. And that verse that we spoke about last week from John 16 really began to reign true and take shape in my life. I want to remind you of that verse that we introduced last week. Once again, Jesus is speaking to his disciples. It's found in John 16, and it says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart that I have overcome the world. And you look at a verse like this and you go, how can we have peace knowing trouble is coming? How do we take heart? What is it that Jesus told them that made it possible? Because right now you're in the middle of the roller coaster and you're experiencing anything but peace. And listen, I understand that too. It took a while, but I had such incredible peace going into the surgery. And then when I came out, it went all of whack. It went all out of whack. How do we get back there? How do we get to the point that no matter what life throws at us, that we can have peace from the moment and that it comes from him? What does it mean to take heart? I mean, I think a big way you see that the disciples eventually get there, they get to this point where they can pray for boldness. They get to this point where they can experience God's peace despite all the things that are happening, right? Because eventually they saw how it was going to end. In fact, whether we acknowledge it or not, right? I talked about it when I was big and watching them go through the tunnels, but a big part of riding that roller coaster is at the amusement park relies on the fact that we know how it's going to end. We see the train pulling into the station, we're waiting to get on, we see the people laughing, enjoying, okay, good, everyone has their heads, all right, great. We see their faces, we see their experience, we know how it's going to end. And some of you are on this roller coaster of life, you get really frustrated on how it's going to end. You want God to tell you how it's going to end. You say things like, I just want to know how it's going to work out, how it's going to end, how it's, where it's headed. And the reality is that he has answered this question for you and me. He's told you how it's going to work out. He tells you how this ride is going to conclude. A couple of chapters back in John 14, right around when this, Jesus starts this discourse that's often called the upper room discourse. This is chapters 14 through 17 in the book of John. And it's called that because it was given in the upper room by Jesus during the Passover with his disciples. It's a very personal moment in the life of Jesus and his disciples. And this isn't Jesus teaching to 1,000 people. This is a private meal. His public ministry at this point had ended. And by the time we get to chapter 14, the disciples are agitated. They're restless. They're troubled. They're nervous, right? Jesus has shared with them some things that they're not exactly satisfied with, right? They're anxious. So far, Jesus predicted that he was going to die. That's not what they expected. They thought that he said that he would be betrayed by one of them, and he told Peter that he would deny even knowing him 3 times. So Peter, especially, but the other disciples were uneasy. They were nervous. There were a couple of twists and turns on this roller coaster with Jesus. So going back to Jesus' words in John chapter 14, he starts off like this in verse 1. He says, "Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust also in me. There's more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, would I not have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? When everything is ready, I will come and get you so that you will be with me always. Be with me where I am." So Jesus is basically telling them, listen, stop what you're already doing. Stop stressing out. I know you're already stressing out. I know you're already freaking out. I know you're already nervous. Stop it. That would be the 2021 translation of this, right? Stop stressing out. Stop freaking out. Stop being nervous. Don't let your hearts be troubled. If you can go back to verse 1, don't let your hearts be troubled. Now get this. Because he told them this, it shows that we're in control of our emotions. You come across somebody and some people say, I can't help it. I'm stressed out. Jesus would say, stop it. How can he do that? How can he do that? I mean, are there any reasons of the why or the how for the basis of that? Well, I believe when we look at these verses, there are actually 3 reasons that he can say that, and that we can begin to live that out in our life as we're journeying on this roller coaster of life. The first reason is because who you know. The first reason is because who you know. The second reason is where you'll go. And the third reason is what he'll show. So you can remember it. You're welcome. First off, you can do this because of who you know. My mom always said, it's not what you know, it's who you know. John 14:1. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust in me also. Do you think the disciples had any reason to not trust Jesus? Has he been trustworthy up to this point? Whenever there was any need, couldn't they just lean on Jesus who was there with them in these amazing ways? I mean, think about it up to this point. When there was no food for the 5,000 people, he fed 5,000 people. When the storm was raging and going to capsize the boat, Jesus calmed the storm. When Lazarus died, he raised him from the dead. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust in me. Because of who you know, and you know me, Jesus is saying, you've been with me for 3.5 years. Trust in God and trust in me. You know God, you know me. Maybe you're troubled in your situation because you don't know what God has done for you through Jesus Christ. Maybe you've accepted Jesus. Maybe you've walked into this relationship with Jesus, but haven't taken that time to build a relationship with him. Growing up, I was terrible at math and science. I couldn't do it. One day my dad said, maybe I can help. I was like, what do you know about third grade math and science? My dad was an aerospace engineer for 44 years. Let me tell you something. From that day forward, I never worried about how to do math and science. In the same way, you get to know Jesus, you gain confidence in him in your circumstances. Knowing Jesus is a very broad topic that we all spend our lives trying to understand. However, in this specific series, we're thinking about how knowing Jesus specifically helps us to ride and love roller coasters. There are a couple things about knowing Jesus that impact my roller coaster ride. Number one, first, as we get to know Jesus, we learn that Jesus cares about us, that he loves us, and that he came to free us from fear and all the things that enslave us. By knowing Jesus, we can begin to understand the character of God, his faithfulness toward us, his goal for us, and how we can live a life that is full and meaningful. Without knowing Jesus, we're going to have trouble seeing what God is doing and how he is at work in our circumstances. We miss out on understanding how we can trust him. We miss out seeing how he has been trustworthy in the past. We'll lack confidence in God. We'll even walk away from the peace that he wants to give us and walk into more turmoil. By knowing Jesus, we unlock this door that invites Jesus into our lives so we can see where he is while we ride that roller coaster. And we begin to see that Jesus is with us on that roller coaster ride as we go through it. We can follow Jesus' path through the twists and the turns and the ups and the downs and trust the way that he's directing us. We can have peace. We can have peace about what's happening because we know he is for us and that he is with us and that he is leading us. So the first reason you can have this peace amidst this roller coaster ride is because of who you know. The second reason is because of where you'll go. Look at what he says in 14:2. It says, there is more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? You see, he can speak into this in your life because he has incredible confidence about where he's going. Jesus is going to be very busy when he gets there because he's going to prepare a place for you. And he's talking to his disciples. And a disciple is anyone who follows Jesus. This isn't just for those 13 men that are there. Do you know how many times the scriptures talk about heaven? 532 times. Thank you, Google. It speaks about heaven. And when you look, you look how Jesus speaks about heaven. Where are you, those who have placed your faith in Jesus Christ, where you'll go, where I'll go, it's incredibly relational. It's incredibly intimate. pretty special that on Father's Day, he calls it my Father's house. When Jesus told his disciple, there's more than enough room in my Father's house, and I'm going to prepare a place for you, he deliberately chose common physical terms, house, room, place, to describe where he was going, and he was preparing for us. He wanted to give his disciples something tangible to look forward to, an actual place where they and we are going to be with him. This place isn't some, ethereal realm of disembodied spirits. As humans, we're not related for that. Hollywood has done a terrible job of showing heaven. Listen, I don't want to go to a place where I fly around in a cloud and a harp. That sounds like the other place to me. A place by nature is physical, and we by nature are physical, yet we're also spiritual, which is why what we're suited for is a place that has been specifically designed for us by God. Where you'll go. And finally, where you'll go, what he'll show. What he's going to show you, how he's going to show you, where he's going to show you while he's there. Let's look at verse 3 again, right? It says, when everything is ready, I will come and get you so that you will always be with me where I am. The reason that we can have peace amidst this roller coaster ride, the reason when things start to stress us out and he can look at you and say, hey, stop it, focus on me, is because of who you know, where you'll go, and what he'll show. He's coming into this verse saying, I am coming to get you. Not only have I prepared a place for you, but I'm specifically coming back to bring you to my Father's house, a place that has been prepared specifically for you. It is so unbelievably relational. I didn't come up with this phrase, but I love the way that it was put it, right? It says, love prepares a welcome. With love, Dana and I prepared the nursery for the arrival of our child. With love, we prepared our apartment this week because my parents are going to be joining us tomorrow. With love, our team was here at 7 a.m. preparing this place for you to be able to experience God. Love prepares a welcome. And when I was lying in that hospital bed crying out to God to help my blood pressure go down, to heal my wounds, he continually showed me how incredibly loving and relational he is. He reminded me of the flood of verses that you, my church family, and my family were sending to me and praying over me and continuing to send me messages that were coming from Colorado and Minnesota and literally all over the world. And when it seemed like I couldn't even pray because I couldn't relax, God pushed through and reminded me of his faithfulness. I remember one particularly bad day at home after being at the hospital. My mind started to wander. I started to freak out. I started to think, what if this? What if that? And I started to cry. My 2-year-old climbed up onto my lap. She put her hand on my face. She said, it's going to be okay, Dada. It's going to be okay. Our God is incredibly, incredibly relational. He's going to speak to us through any means necessary to get our attention. Maybe that's why you're here now. Maybe you've been running from him. Maybe you've been angry at him because of the roller coaster that you're in. Whatever it is, he's trying to get your attention. He is so incredibly relational that if it was going to take my daughter crawling up on my lap and telling me it's going to be okay, he was going to get that word across. He continues in verse 4, he says, and you know the way where I'm going. And Thomas, who never misses a beat, says, no, we don't know, Lord. We have no idea where you're going. So how can we know the way? Well, obviously Thomas thought he was going to another city or another town. And Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus knows what he's doing. And Jesus knows exactly what he's about to do. We are mere moments away from him being betrayed. We are mere moments away from him, and he's not far from being hung on the cross. And Jesus has a very interesting perspective on all this because he will actually die and then he will come back from the dead. So he's not guessing about this. He's someone who's actually experienced this. And as a result, we can have confidence that he knows death better than we do. And I think we can all argue that this past year has revealed that we don't necessarily have the confidence that we thought we had. For many of us, we lived in a great fear of death. This is actually what Jesus is saying. Don't let your hearts be troubled. Don't fear. And when you look at those early believers that we talked about in John 16, those early believers the verses that we looked last week, right? This idea that I'm praying for boldness. When they got to that point, right, they eventually got from here, we don't know where you're going, to praying for boldness amidst some of the craziest things that were coming at them, right? That confidence, that boldness flows directly out of their understanding of what was next. Do they want to die? No. But were they afraid of dying? By that time, absolutely not. And over the last 2,000 years, believers have been the ones who show up, and we show up because we look at the words of Jesus. He said in 14:1, I trust in God and I trust in Jesus. For 2,000 years, the ones that show up when no one else will. They were the ones that were willing to be burnt at the stake, fed to wild animals to communicate this message of Jesus Christ because they had such incredible confidence. They had phenomenal confidence in the way the ride ends. And we can have that same phenomenal confidence. Having confidence in the end can change the entire roller coaster ride. So you've got to figure out what you truly believe. Do you really believe trust in God and trust in Jesus? Do you really trust in God and trust in Jesus? Are you willing to leave behind the fear of death to ride the ride well? And the only way you can do that is to trust. I mean, this is critical, guys. This is critical into following Jesus. When it comes to how you engage the ride, this is one of the most important things that Jesus shares with his disciples. It's one of those things that allows us to have peace amidst the troubles. It's one of those things that allows us to take heart and to step into it with boldness. You do get to see how the ride ends because Jesus came back and now he can speak with confidence and authority. When I got that diagnosis, all of a sudden it became really real what I believe and what I don't. Does that mean we just lay down and let it happen? No, not at all. I'm still here. You're still here. We fight because there are many rooms. And Jesus has tapped us to help him fill it. I wanted to get my voice back as quickly as possible so I could get up here and get in front of people and let them know about the incredible confidence I have, not in myself, but in him. The only thing that got me and my family through the last 8 weeks was him. I honestly don't know how people go through something like this without God and his people. But as I wrap up, I'm going to go back to those 3 questions. The reason that we can ride this roller coaster well. The reason that we can have incredible confidence that Jesus is who he says he is and what he's done. It's because of who you know. It's because of where you'll go. And because of what he'll show. So who you know. Do you know Jesus? Really, do you know Jesus? This is the Jesus who has gone to prepare a place for you. This is the Jesus who died for you and on the 3rd day was resurrected. And this is the Jesus through his Holy Spirit is now living right now. This is the Jesus. This isn't about perfection. You're never going to be perfect this side of heaven. But do you trust the one who conquered death, who knows death, and who has overcome it? Because if you know Jesus, then you know how the ride is going to end. He's already begun to prepare a place specifically for you. And when it's time, he's personally going to come back and bring you back to him. That is the key to riding the roller coaster well. And if you haven't accepted Christ yet, guess what? He's got plenty of room, plenty of space. Why not begin letting him prepare a place for you too? Maybe it's time to pray with that with me right now. And if you've been walking in this relationship with Jesus and you've been freaking out about something, let's bring that to him right now. Because we have incredible confidence in the one who's overcome it all, who's riding this roller coaster right with us. And because of what he's done, because of who he is, and because of how he's shown us, we can continue to ride it well. Will you pray with me? Father, this is just so fundamental to our relationship with everything in this world. Really, God, my heart aches for those who are here and those who are watching, who haven't said yes to you, because I honestly don't know how I would have done the last 8 weeks without you. How you've continued to reveal yourself to me, how you've continued to encourage me, how you've continued to hold me close. God, I'm amazed at your faithfulness. I'm amazed at your goodness. And I want everybody to experience that. I want people here to know that you are good. There may be people here who are worried about walking into that relationship with you because they don't know. They don't know if you're good. Or they're scared because of something that happened to them. Or maybe it was something that we, your people, did to them. And for that, we're sorry. But help us to reflect you to the world around us, God, because you are a God who can be trusted. Trust in God and trust in Jesus. And when we can live in that, we can have incredible peace no matter what loops and turns and twists the roller coaster of life throws at us. And if they're here today and they're saying yes to Jesus for the first time, God, I want them to know you're preparing that room for them right now. And it is going to be so special. And it is going to be so unique to them that they're going to realize that love indeed does prepare a welcome. It's in Jesus' name we pray, God. Amen.